I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. Tonight we're going to start with a story about a local sheriff's deputy shot 7 times in one awful moment. Despite the odds against it, though, he survived and is now on the road to recovery. And he's talking to the media for the first time. And that's why it's our big story tonight. Police work is dangerous business. No one knows that better than Washington County Deputy Chuck Dozé. What seemed like a routine eviction from an apartment went terribly wrong. And in the blink of an eye, Dozé was fighting for his life. Devin Haskins sat down and talked with him about that July day, a day he remembers in great detail. Okay. All right, here we go.
At the age of 70, Chuck Dozé's just trying to get his body back to where it once was. He's used to staying active, a hiker, a runner. And even after his injury, he was right back on the trail. This trail to recovery is pushing him forward. It's what he wants.
Then reverse it?
We'll reverse the direction, yeah.
Okay.
Dozé's used to switching things up. 11 years ago, he switched careers, leaving a job in the automotive industry.
I've always had a strong desire to be of service.
That desire to serve took him to the Washington County Sheriff's Office, first starting as a reserve deputy, then 5 years ago as a civil deputy. Nearly a year ago, his physical fitness would prove more than a hobby, helping him survive a near-death experience.
Grip is the biggest, one of the biggest improvements.
Yeah.
Just because of the nature of that injury.
It was the morning of July 26, 2023. Dozé had just started his shifts.
Our day consists of serving subpoenas, restraining orders, orders of assistance, restraining order move-outs, and also evictions.
He grabbed a stack of papers like he always does.
Just like any other day, got my route put together, my subpoenas, my restraining orders and such, and then I got a call from Deputy Schroeder to assist on an eviction in my district in Tualatin.
That phone call would forever change his life.
There was nothing in the paperwork that showed that there was any sort of risk.
The eviction was for an apartment at the Forest Rim Apartments, the unit you see here with plywood. Dozé was there with 2 other deputies.
So we proceeded up the stairs. Deputy Schroeder took the position of he was going to put the door. So Deputy Burkhead went to the right. I was on the stairway, 1 foot on, 1 foot off.
The eviction was for a man named Chris Graves for failing to pay rent and utilities. Deputies knocked, no answer. They tried using a key, but the door wouldn't open. One of the deputies then started to kick the door in.
The door popped open, and Deputy Schroeder rolled away as per our training, and that's when the shooting started. I mean, it was instantaneous. He was prepared. It was an ambush. He was not going to go.
The radio crackled with a call for help, the deputy holding on to him, issuing these haunting words.
Cover shots fired. Deputy down.
Dozé was bleeding badly.
A total of 7 rounds struck me. 1 in each elbow, 3 in the chest, 1 on this right side of my head that grazed me. I've got about a 6-inch scar. And then the last bullet struck me in the left temple. Came down through my eye, destroyed all my sinuses, came out through the roof of my mouth, and exited, taking some teeth with it, exited out this side of my mouth. I have a scar here right like that.
In all of the chaos, the deputies were trapped up there, unable to move. As they pulled Deputy Dozé off to the side, Graves, the man inside, started shooting again.
Copy, suspect still firing rounds. Deputy is trapped on the porch. All units go 3.
Trapped and bleeding, Dozé's mind thought the worst.
And I remember saying, I think I'm going to die. And I said that a couple of times. And then Deputy Schroeder, he goes, you're not going to die.
By this time, the parking lot at the apartments had become a beehive of police activity.
I could hear the sirens. I could hear people yelling.
P102 to the units arriving. Let's get some eyes on them. Let's get some vehicles in place if we can. Let's get them off the porch. It's going to be our main priority.
For nearly 15 long minutes, they waited for help. Finally, officers rushing up the stairs and helping carry him down to safety.
the day that I won't soon forget.
He would spend 10 days in the hospital and undergo multiple surgeries. The bullets destroying his left eye, nerve damage in his face and arms would mean months of physical therapy and rehab. He had escaped death. His life forever changed.
Who was looking over you that day?
Who was looking over me? Oh, I had a lot of angels that day. And yeah, I had a lot of angels.
Those same angels, his angels in blue, lined the walk outside the hospital as he went home. A hero's reception back into the community he felt the call to serve.
If I didn't have a faith in something larger than myself, I don't know if I would be sitting here talking to you.
At physical therapy, the work continues.
They said that one of the reasons why I probably survived all of this was because of the physical condition I was in.
Too much or that?
No. I mean, how else am I gonna get better?
The one thing he's never lost is his determination, a will to keep going and get stronger every day.
Devin's with me now. What a powerful story. Yeah. And what about the guy in the apartment doing the shooting? What happened with him?
So during the shooting and then afterwards, and then when they were trapped up there on the deck, what the deputies didn't know is that the guy had already taken his own life during that, yeah. Okay,
and the deputy who was hit, has he made it back to work yet?
He hasn't. He's still undergoing the physical therapy and rehab and a couple surgeries as well. I asked him, do you want to get back on the job? And he said he'd love to, of course, but he didn't know if it would happen.
And he's 70 years old now.
70 years old, yeah.
It's impressive to see this comeback, with the physical therapy. I hope he is able to get back to the job. And it also really gives you an idea of the dangers of what can happen at almost any moment.
He talked about that day. He said that day it started like any other day, grabbed his paperwork and then got that phone call. And just like that, it completely changed his life.
Yeah, wow. All right. Great story, Devin. Thanks for bringing it to us. Now moving on, let's get some of your thoughts on our big story from last night. If you missed it, I sat down with the director of Oregon's Department of Agriculture to talk about the tainted water crisis happening out in eastern Oregon. Nitrates are polluting the groundwater in the lower Umatilla Basin Groundwater Management Area, also known by the acronym LUBGWAMA. It's been going on for 30 years, and it's caused health problems for people living there. A significant amount of the pollution comes from farming in the area. 69%, according to a state study, is from the agricultural irrigation. Nitrates are found in fertilizer and seeps into the wells as farmers water their huge fields. So, what is the Department of Ag doing about it? Here's part of my conversation with Lisa Charpillos-Hansen.
There is not currently a tracking system for the fertilizer or agricultural practices there. I think the important thing to note in terms of Oregon's Ag Water Quality Program and the plans and the rules that go along with that is the basis of the plan is no pollution to groundwater or surface water from agricultural activities. There's a lot of diversity across the state, and there's a lot of diversity in the plans across the state because of the complexity of Oregon agriculture.
Okay. How do you think that's going in the LUBGWAMA?
That's a great question. I think, we all know that the LUBGWAMA was declared about 30 years ago.
Yeah.
We've tried many different iterations, I think, of options with the committee there and looking at different practices, et cetera. And clearly, where we're at today, it hasn't yielded the results that we would have wanted to see in terms of reductions.
Yeah, the pollution's worse now.
You're right. It hasn't yielded the reductions in the nitrates in the water that we would have wanted to see.
Charpillos-Hansen, the director there, says more does need to be done about the problem and that all options are on the table as far as solutions. She says ODA has started work to review water quality plans and that they're really close to the action part, doing an evaluation of ag processes to be put together soon. A lot of you were not impressed with that response. Dick wrote to us to say she had lots of words, was very deliberate in how she expressed them, and yet said absolutely nothing. I didn't hear a single answer to any of your questions. She just tap danced around the questions. I understand the importance of farming community, but still don't understand why they are allowed to pollute the underground water of so many people without repercussions. What can the state possibly not know at this point? Sue emailed us as well. Ag Director did the answer without an answer technique when you tried to pin her down on whether new water regulations will be voluntary or involuntary. Shades of I'll answer the first part of your question last and the last part of your question first, and then will not actually answer any of your question at all. Made me laugh, and of course, ag affecting groundwater for decades, still not remedied, is not funny at all. Terrible for folks on the east side with polluted drinking water. And Don wrote to us to say, the director should be able to tell you what needs to be done and show you the plan with a deadline to achieve the solution. This whole thing reminds me of the runaround we get from Multnomah County solving the homeless issue. Talk, 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 study, 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 no plan, no plan, no plan. And here's a voicemail from Chris.
I also believe the polluted groundwater problem in eastern Oregon is shameful and frankly disgusting. I think the ODA director's answers to your excellent questions were just more agency weasel wording to protect the agri-industry at all costs.
Now, most of the responses we got were along kind of the same lines. You wanted to hear a concrete plan, and many of you thought the director was trying to pivot away from the questions at hand. But we did get a few emails in her support. Dean wrote in to say, I was impressed by the ODA leader. She was thoughtful, listened to the questions, and really seemed to be honest in her outlook. And Conan wrote, it is very clear she has to thread a needle. It is an economic ecosystem that needs to be protected for everyone. The solution could clearly not lose jobs for the very people it's intended to help. A tricky needle. Hey, if you missed the story, you'll want to check it out. This and all of our stories in our Tainted Water series are up on our KGW YouTube channel. Click over to the playlist tab and you'll see it at the top right there. And if you want to weigh in or this is on this or any of the stories that you see on our show, we'd love to hear from you all the time. You can email us. The address is thestory@kgw.com, or call and leave a voicemail. The number is 503-226-5090. Doesn't matter whether you're watching this live or later on YouTube. We'd love to hear from you. Still ahead on the story. Remember that big scandal last year at the OLCC, the one where executives were setting aside rare bourbon and other liquor for their own purchase before anyone else could get it? Well, the Department of Justice investigated and decided nobody's going to be charged, at least not criminally. What they say they learned about what went on at the agency and why they can't charge anyone when the story returns. Last year, a big scandal rocked the Oregon Liquor and Control Commission when the Oregonian newspaper published an investigation revealing that executives in the agency, including the director, ordered bottles of rare liquor set aside for them to buy before the public could get it. Now the Oregon Department of Justice says there will not be criminal charges against anyone involved. Let's talk about why. First, here's what happened. In Oregon, the state buys and taxes all hard liquor, then sells it to independently operated liquor stores. That includes rare liquor that can cost hundreds of dollars a bottle. Only a handful of those rare bottles come into the state at a time. After all, they are rare. The initial investigation found that top managers at the OLCC would request to have some of the bottles set aside, reserved for them to buy before the public had a chance to buy them in a lottery system. After the story broke, the executive director of the OLCC, Steve Marks, stepped down at the request of Governor Tina Kotek, followed by OLCC board chairman Paul Rosenbaum. Rosenbaum claimed at the time that nobody on the board knew anything about it.
What did we know? Nothing. Nothing. There is not one person up here who knew a thing about the process, the procedure, the thing we're all discussing today. Not one. Not one. And if we didn't know about it, and we didn't, then how could we participate in it? We didn't. So stop asking questions about that. I'm telling you, nobody knew anything about this.
All right, well, pretty forceful statement. Give him credit for that. What the Justice Department found is that the practice of setting aside liquor, pretty much an open secret at the OLCC, one that went back decades, in fact. One employee told agents it had been going on the entire time she worked for OLCC, which was 30 years, and it started before she got hired. But no criminal charges will be filed for two big reasons. One, there was no specific statute against OLCC employees setting aside liquor for their own purchase, probably because no one thought you needed such a statute. The Justice Department says the records also between OLCC and liquor stores were a mess, and investigators could not prove who was actually buying what and who had made what requests. So here's what they looked into. The OLCC has a database that tracks the products in its warehouse. It's only accessible by OLCC employees and liquor store agents, so the employees knew if rare liquor was available. But there's no rule saying they can't just go ahead and share that information with anybody they like. Investigators talked to an OLCC distribution control manager who admitted to routing the liquor to specific stores at the request of multiple employees. Often they had them sent to a liquor store near their office. I mean, why not? The distribution control manager said she would then call the liquor store and tell them the product was being sent for a specific customer. But agents were unable to locate specific employees who made these requests. In the instance of the store near the office, for example, the store is now under new ownership and does not have sales records from the previous owner. Isn't that convenient? Investigators looked into the bank records of some OLCC employees, although they didn't specify in their report which ones. They were trying to trace specific liquor store purchases back to the OLCC employees, but in the end, they said they were unable to connect any of those purchases to a specific request to have booze set aside. Investigators did look into OLCC's communications records. They did find a specific request made in writing that a case be set aside to be purchased by OLCC executives. But then they say they looked at financial records and, really couldn't prove who had actually made the darn purchase. Investigators say they had a lot of trouble talking to employees, by the way. The ones on administrative leave after the scandal had lawyers who told them not to talk, and other employees had already quit. The DOJ says they considered a couple of charges, official misconduct, where a public servant knowingly does something unauthorized for their own use, and misuse of confidential information as well. Those are the two charges. They decided that this situation doesn't really meet the letter of the law because there was not a specific statute, again, prohibiting it, and therefore the employees didn't necessarily know that they were doing something wrong. The DOJ wrote in their report, Even though the employee's behavior may have breached ethical standards, there is no explicit policy prohibiting the specific conduct. We found no evidence of relevant training, and the practice appears to have been long-standing and endorsed by at least one executive director. Also, the statute of limitations for misdemeanors is only 2 years, so the time to bring charges has pretty much expired. Now, there is a specific rule prohibiting employees from setting aside rare liquor, and the OLCC has changed up the way they offer it to the public with quarterly drawings, all of which will be recorded. So hopefully that'll fix things. Oregon Governor Tina Kotek sent out a statement saying that the documents from this investigation will be sent to the Oregon Government Ethics Commission for consideration in its review of the ethics complaints made in this situation. When we come back, we're checking out some new technology being used by Clackamas firefighters. If you've ever tried out a virtual reality setup, you know some of them can be really realistic. So these firefighters are using them to train for some pretty intense scenarios. We'll show you when we come back. We started the show talking about police work, and we're going to end it with firefighters in Clackamas County. Firefighters are using virtual reality to help prepare them for real-life emergencies. It gives them a chance to train for the kind of rescues that you really can't create in the real world, things like terror attacks, using the same kind of tech that you see in video game consoles. Ashley Grahams has a closer look at how it all works.
At first glance, it looks like a video game, but this is actually a virtual reality training for first responders.
Everybody's cautious about technology and gaming and is it valuable? It is now,
That's Rick Huffman. He's the EMS Division Chief for Clackamas Fire. He helped apply for a grant from the Department of Homeland Security that funded this new technology.
I think anybody will tell you the first time you put on a virtual headset and either you're jumping off a building or doing something, it feels so much real, more real than you expect.
Huffman says Clackamas Fire is only the second fire agency in the nation to use this Australian-made program. It's called EmergiSim, short for Emergency Simulation. The VR headsets themselves are available to anyone. It's this specialty software that's so unique.
Most of the simulations are something that we have a hard time practicing on because they're so extreme and so high risk.
Often the simulations are shootings, stabbings, multiple car pileups, or terrorist attacks.
Your brain thinks you're there, and that's been proven. And so that's why it's valuable for us.
First responders will now get a chance to treat every patient on scene in a high-stress situation, so they're prepared for any emergency in real life.
Well, today I visited just one fire station, but they tell me they hope to have this virtual reality training in all 20 stations soon. In Clackamas, Ashley Grams, KGW News.
Thanks, Ashley. Hey, that's the end of our show. Thanks so much for watching. But remember, the story, our collective story, that never ends. It just goes on and on. The good stuff is coming your way next, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30.